Welcome to The InEVitable, a podcast by MotorTrend.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of The InEVitable. This is MotorTrend's podcast, our vodcast about the future of the car, the future of transportation, the future of really small electric pickup trucks. But before we get to our guests, this guy, Ed Lowe, has a special message just for you.
The InEVitable podcast is brought to you by the all-electric Nissan Ariya, inspired by the future, designed for the now. And hey, we went really long on this interview because it was great, but I still do have a question for Jonny that is related to the topic today on our guests, which is we're recording this a day after Scout dropped their product line. So VW Group purchased the Scout name, the International Harvester Scout, all sorts of names. Classic 4x4 that went out of business in like the 80s.
80. Yeah. 80.
And they dropped two vehicles, the Terra and the Traveler, the truck and the SUV. And there's a lot of big news made. One is that they're just not completely EV. They have an EREV version. They have like a hybrid.
Yeah.
And a bunch of wild news, body on frame truck with a solid axle.
Solid rear axle, Dana E axle.
Dana E axle. And I was quick to point out, as did the entire internet, that they look a lot like Rivian. The pickup truck looks a lot like a Rivian, and the SUV looks a lot like Bronco.
A Bronco. Yeah, parts of it. I think that the SUV is actually a really nice design. The pickup truck less so. I think the SUV is a very nice design. I love that it has an external spare tire, because if you off-road, that's important. That's a big thing. You don't want to have to be like unloading stuff to get at your tire. It looks like a Scout 2. Tim Waltz, Governor Waltz, he drives a Scout 2. It's been in the news lately. They had that intellectual property. It looks like that. I mean, the stats are pretty cool. 350 miles of range, 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. 2 motors, locking differentials. So that's great for all kinds of off-roading, rock crawling, whatever.
Interior ripped straight out of Rivian.
Partially, but like a lot of switches, which I think for a software-defined vehicle, which I assume this is going to be, isn't actually a great thing. Like, yeah, we kind of like switches, but I think people are so quick to dismiss screens without understanding the power of what a fully screened interior can do. It took me a while to get up to speed on that, but
clearly not just some very good-looking, sort of metallic-looking knobs and switches below their little multi-information display.
Yeah.
But they also have like a fluid-filled compass, like near the. So it's
right.
There's some shtick to this.
There's shtick.
It's
in other words, there was literally a Rivian.
It's for the Filson crowd. It's for the Patagonia.
Kind of no, because so Rivian, by the way, just did a software update where they stuck a compass on the left side of the screen. It's now permanently there. But no, if you listen to the presentation, and it was our friend Scott Kehoe was one of the presenters and a future guest of this program, but they were sort of like not going for the coastal elites. They were talking about like the forgotten Americans and like, the Scout is for the people who still want to achieve the American dream. By the way, we're going to build this without UAW labor in South Carolina, the least unionized, lowest wage state in the nation. So it's sort of like Rivian is going for the Patagonia crowd. Somebody told me they were told off the record that they're not focusing on Newport Beach and New Haven, Connecticut. They're focusing on like, Houston and, another big Midwestern type city. So it's sort of like
$60,000 pickup truck. What they're claiming? 69.
So yeah, they're saying it's going to be 60,000, and then with the tax credit, $7,500, they'll get it down to 53. Just add 10 grand to that number because there won't be a base model available, blah, 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 blah. So 70,000.
And out in like 3 years.
Well, that was the other weird part, right? So I think they kind of rolled it forward and said it's going to be out in 26 as a 27 model, but they could still slide it to out in 27 as a 28 model. And Volkswagen Group has this really weird habit in the US of dragging their feet. Like, the ID Buzz has been out in Europe for years now, and it's October 24. We just got it now.
Yeah.
And it's been at least 3 years it's been out.
But this is supposed to be fundamentally like a North American, an American
Yes,
brand.
manufactured in North America. That's why we need to talk to Scott and other people from Scout. But like, I'd love to know like, okay, they're using a Dana axle. So in other words, they're not going to be using a Volkswagen Group axle, but like, are the suspension components unique to Scout?
Yeah.
Probably because there aren't any other 7,000-pound trucks.
Body on frame trucks
Yeah.
in the group. At least now.
At least now, yeah. So yeah,
it's a huge pickup truck. It's
the
trying to
pickup
make a
truck's
big
the size
deal.
of an F-150.
Yeah, it's a big full-size pickup truck.
Yeah,
So,
the SUV is interesting though. It's I want to find out the length of it, but it's about the size of the Rivian, but it's a 2-row. However, 2 bench seats, so it's a 6-passenger 2-row,
which I love.
which
So
I'd
I do
like.
like.
I don't
Okay.
like that, but yeah.
So I love a bench seat.
Yeah.
Give me a Porsche with a bench seat. Anyways, so like I was saying, Scout, big electric pickup truck. Today, we're going to talk to a very small electric
That's
pickup.
right.
The two of three of the co-founders of TELO Trucks are going to join us here in just a second. And they are super interesting folks. We have Jason Marks. He is the founder and CEO. The guy used to work at National Instruments. He's worked on autonomy and ADAS for a number of automakers over the years. He's apparently a LiDAR specialist, has a LiDAR patent. And then we have Forrest North, another founder. He's a CTO. This guy also has a long history in the EV space.
By the way, we should get Forrest back in to do like the history of the electric vehicle episode of the InEVitable.
He was at Tesla in 2005.
Yeah.
He founded Mission Motors, which we actually covered at MotorTrend. That they did electric motorcycles, set a bunch of land speed records. He also founded and has already sold PlugShare, which is the app that we were recommending a lot of people use to find chargers that work. That's now owned by EVgo. So Jason and Forrest, founders of TELO Trucks, are going to tell us about their MT1 UAV, which is those little pickup truck, ultimate adventure vehicle or something like that.
There might be an MTS.
No, an MS.
Sorry,
an
MS1, which
Yes.
would be the...
So urban adventure vehicle MT1 from TELO Trucks. Let's talk to the founders. All right, so Forrest, Jason, thank you so much for coming. You guys are from, you'll have to say the name for me because I don't know where, is it TELO?
TELO.
TELO?
TELO Trucks. Yep.
TELO Trucks. My sister's name is Tanya, so she's often referred to as TELO. Shout out to my sister. So, but it's TELO. TELO Trucks. And you guys are both co-founders. So Forrest North, co-founder, CTO, Jason Marks, founder, CEO.
Correct.
So the guy with the jacket, so if you're watching, the guy with the jacket, CEO, okay?
Right.
Let's get into it. Let's just talk about what this truck is, okay?
Yeah.
The MT1.
Yeah.
All right.
So we build electric mini trucks.
Okay.
So we're a crew cab pickup truck, the capability of a mid-sized truck, and the footprint of a 2-door Mini Cooper.
Okay.
What generation Mini Cooper?
the most current.
Oh, so big. Okay.
So yeah, it's a trick we use. People
right.
often associate
Right.
Mini
So I was
Cooper
like,
as
the first gen Mini Cooper was really small.
120 inches.
Right,
Now it's
okay.
152 inches.
Right. Okay.
And our vehicle is 152 inches long.
What's your wheelbase?
111 inches.
Okay,
that's
so
good, that's good.
111 inches is like a Mercedes
Tesla Model 3.
C-Class.
Tesla Model 3 or C-Class. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is great. This is exactly where I was going to go. I'm going to shout out.
That's small for a pickup.
I'm going to shout out some of these specs because I have
Okay.
them all down. So
Oh.
you said crew cab, 4-door, 5-passenger.
That's right.
It is 152 inches long. It is 73 inches tall. It is 73 inches wide and 66 inches in height. Because this guy over here is the world's leading Rivian shill. I got those specs down. In comparison, 152 length to a Rivian R1T 217. So for the people listening at home, in terms of width, again, the TELO MT1 is 73, Rivian is 79 wide, and then the height is pretty substantial. 66 inches tall for the TELO, 78 for the R1T. So the delta between it is about 65 inches longer for Rivian, 6 inches wider, and about a foot taller.
That's
just
right.
to put it in context.
Yeah.
All right. Dual motor.
Now do F-150.
Not like
Yeah.
that.
231 inches long.
Yeah. 148-inch wheelbase, I think.
And the wheelbase on the R1T is 135 inches versus 111 inches.
Yeah.
So that's pretty significant. The wild thing to me is that you guys claim the bed is 60 inches,
That's right. Yep.
but that's if you open up the.
It's not.
It's not.
Nope.
So 60
Your
inches
bed
is
is smaller.
5 feet.
Yeah, you
That's
got
right.
a 5
Rivian
foot
is a
bed.
4.5.
I know.
Yeah,
That's
tiny bed.
That's
yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's got a 60-inch bed, in a
5 foot head. Come on.
5 foot. Well, I'm trying to go in a 152-inch
Pretend you're a truck guy.
overall length.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay. Dual motor, 500 horsepower claimed, 350-mile range, and
Wow. How big is the battery?
106 kilowatt hours.
That's right.
That's a big
That's a huge
battery.
How do you
big
get the battery?
So there's a lot of tricks we had to pull to be able to do everything you've just described. And a lot of people don't believe us. They see our vehicle and they go, "There's no way that's the size of a Mini Cooper." We go, "Let's go to bring a tape measure. Let's measure it and we'll go figure it out." So there's 2 major innovations we had to actually make to even do these things. One was in battery technology. How do we build a battery pack that fits into our footprint and has a big enough capacity that can satisfy the range of Americans?
Right.
Another one is how do we address crash safety without having a giant vehicle?
Right.
There's this misnomer, if you will, that the bigger the vehicle, the safer it is. And while it may be true for the occupants of a vehicle, it's certainly not true for pedestrians, and it's certainly not true if you're a vehicle getting struck by that giant vehicle.
Right.
So we actually looked at, my background's in safety and active and passive safety, and we hired some consultants as well. And we went through and said, what does it actually have to be true to pass crash safety with FMVSS regulations? And we made a lot of innovations in materials and structures and crumple to actually make that happen.
Well, let's start with the battery pack. So, 100. So, famously, I think a Tesla Model S was about 100 kilowatts, something like that. So, 106 is.
Yeah. Well, P85 was 85. P100 was 100 kilowatt hour.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Okay.
Nominally, they're probably
they're all the same
or
size.
something.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
they're
yeah.
very similar.
Yeah. So what chemistry is this battery?
It's NMC.
Okay, so lithium ion.
Yeah.
For okay.
Yeah.
Who makes it? Who makes it? Who would make it? CATL?
We're right now we're planning on using Samsung cells.
Okay.
They seem to be the ones that fit our criteria the best.
Okay.
But we're focused on the 21700 format.
Okay.
And so anything that's in that form factor.
So it's important that we build our own packs.
Okay.
We buy the cells off the shelf,
Okay.
and then we have technology that allows us to assemble our pack in an extremely space efficient way.
Okay.
So every single one of our innovations around space efficiency, for how do we package the most amount of energy into the smallest space.
So are you cooling them on the bottom then? Bottom
We
of the
have
cells?
we have a lot of technology that goes into how we actually go about both electrically connecting our pack and thermally connecting our pack. And both of them are all around how do we do it in the smallest amount of space with the simplest manufacturing
So
possible.
again, famously, the Model S, the cooling was threaded around the cells, so it made for a structurally large battery pack. Whereas like Lucid, they cool on the bottom, so you can actually stack the cells in tighter, so it's bigger battery in the same space. So is it similar?
Similar, yes,
Okay, cool.
exactly.
Very cool.
And what Forrest hasn't, maybe you guys go back on our backgrounds real quick. But Forrest was one of the people that developed the original Tesla battery pack.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
cool.
I started at Tesla when there was about 30 people.
Okay.
I was working on the first Mule,
I've got a lot
1,
of
Mule
stock.
2,
Go ahead.
Mule 3.
Yeah.
That's another story.
Actually, that might be the story.
So we're in the presence of a billionaire is what you're saying. Yes, this is amazing.
He's talking to us. He's not a billionaire.
That was I started there in 2005.
So
it was
that's
early.
that's an Everhard
Pre-Roadster.
era.
Roadster's 2008.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I was
Oh,
working
wow.
on the Roadster.
Okay. Wow.
But a lot of those learnings are similar, and I'm definitely a fan of kind of the ethos that pack design came from. Fusing every cell,
Right.
cooling the cells appropriately. You get
Right.
you get the longevity of the pack. You get a long range pack. Gets you the high power density as well,
Right.
or enough power density to have 500 horsepower in a
Right.
small vehicle, which we think is plenty.
Right. And then where are the motors coming from? Are you building the motors?
Yep, commercial off-the-shelf components.
Okay.
So the ethos of our company is to only innovate where it really matters.
Got
So
it.
the things that really matter to us are battery pack
Mhm.
and safety. And that's
Okay.
where we innovate.
Okay. So
form factor.
how big is this battery pack? Like how thick is
So
it?
from the bottom of the enclosure to the top of the top enclosure is 103 millimeters,
Okay.
So that's 10 centimeters. So that's what, 6 inches?
4 inches.
4 inches. Okay.
So then, four
Okay, it's
inches.
small.
And then how long is it?
I
that's a
don't
good question.
remember the exact dimensions off the top of my head, but it fits well within our wheelbase.
Okay, so
Okay.
less than 111.
Well, 111
maybe?
minus the width plus the movement of the tires and the suspension structure ends up being like something like 80 something by.
So
Okay,
let's-
wait, hang on. So it is still obviously still a skateboard chassis,
Yep.
and the battery sits between the full articulation of the
Correct.
front wheel. It's not like some weird extends
Nope,
in between.
it's a
It's a
rectangle.
rectangle, yeah.
Okay, so right in the middle. Okay,
So you're saying you're innovating where you have to innovate, where it matters to innovate. So like, let's say it was not your technology; it was a standard battery pack that you could get, off the shelf, like the motors. Like, how much bigger would that be for the same power draw?
Well, for the math we've done is in that space. How much energy would we have?
Yes, how much could you fit?
So it's about 70%.
Okay, so you're okay. Wow, so that's pretty
Yeah,
space efficient.
nobody has made a battery that fits the dimensions of all the EVs that are out there in China and here. No one has something it's off the shelf. It would certainly be
Well, it
cheaper
wouldn't
to
have
buy
the
it, right?
power. It wouldn't have the power densities. I think what you're saying.
I think that people, like a lot of times they talk about a battery pack, they don't realize that that's like the heart and soul of the EV.
Right.
It determines the range, the power, the performance, the personality of the vehicle. And, what a lot of people have done over the last 20 years is optimize for the performance of the vehicle. How do we get 0 to 60 in sub 2 seconds? How do we get the most energy density per kilogram, maybe? Our metric we try to optimize for is energy density per liter. So volumetric energy density.
Liter,
of the battery pack.
what's
the
the
volume of the battery pack.
Okay, per liter of, okay.
Yeah. So we make a lot of decisions that because we're not trying to go 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, we'll go to 60 in 4 seconds, which
pretty good.
Plenty.
Yeah, pretty good.
We can do a lot of things that a lot of other battery pack makers aren't doing because they're optimizing for that high power use case.
And are you looking to license your battery pack technology anywhere else, or does it just remain within TELO?
We're pretty laser focused on making the vehicle, getting it to market, having that full stack.
I mean, it's obviously like a small mini truck like that is very cool, but when I hear you're talking 111-inch wheelbase, like, man, you can build a sedan off that. You could build
Absolutely.
an SUV off that. You could build all sorts of things that aren't mini trucks. So,
Which we're going to get to.
Yeah,
I got a lot of questions about that decision. But okay, so battery pack, 4 inches, somewhere around some of the 80-inch neighborhood, long, super dense. That's like your critical IP. And I'm glad to hear, because that was my other question. You answered it first. You're actually this is going to be a real car. It's going to pass FMVSS crash testing.
Yep.
It's not going to be some weird loophole.
So we started the company with
2000.
FMVSS in mind, like 208 frontal crash safety. You see our vehicle, that's your first mindset goes to. There's almost no front overhang in the vehicle. You look at it, you go, there's less than an inch, or almost exactly 1 inch of front overhang in our vehicle. Yeah. How can you pass FMVSS 208?
And FMVSS is Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard. So it's all the stuff. It's like, how come we can't have video cameras for side mirrors? It's because there's a law that says you can't. And that's
it's an encyclopedia of regulations that are numbered in the 100, 200, 300, 400.
Formula.
Of all those encyclopedia worth of things, the 200 series deals with crash safety, and 208 specifically deals with frontal crash safety.
So you're going to pass small offset. You're going to pass all those, really?
Yeah.
And like,
how?
Yes, how?
Well, first off, there's a lot of misconceptions about what they're actually measuring when you actually do FMVSS 208. So when you do frontal crash safety, you are measuring the accelerations of the head and the heart of the occupants to make sure that you under a certain threshold for a variety of different situations, belted, unbelted, different size of human beings. And there's a whole series of those, and I'm sure we can share that later and you can share with your audience, but there's a ton of those different scenarios you have to go through. When people kind of look at a vehicle, they go, okay, there's all this crumple zone that people have in vehicles, forgetting that, there's a 4-foot long iron engine block also that has to get out of the way for a gas car.
Sure.
And even if you're an electric car, if you have a frunk and you have something in the frunk, that's still something that's solid and structural potentially in your crumple zone.
Yeah.
So we make sure there's absolutely nothing behind the foot plane of the occupants and the front of the vehicle that isn't able to either be fully compressed into a pocket or completely get out of the way.
Right.
So it means that there's...
So real quick though, like engine blocks, since crash testing really started, they go under the car. They don't really come into the passenger compartment.
But they still have an
steering
inertia
column,
to them.
Yes, they do, but steering columns collapse. This is how you can survive front impact. Like, the idea... the idea that like EVs are inherently safer because there's not an engine is not necessarily true with good design. Like, you get a Mercedes engineer here, he's like, are you nuts? Like, no, our engines don't come in to the passenger compartment,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But if you have a frunk and you have a steel suitcase in that frunk, you have a similar problem.
Death by Ramola, or whatever it's called. Yeah.
But I think that all that to be said, that's the first thing they measure. They put a little accelerometer at the base of the B pillar of the vehicle, and they measure the change in acceleration for your full frontal impact and your offset deformable barrier impact, and they measure the change in acceleration. That's just the first benchmark that you take.
Right.
What actually matters is how does that translate to the head and the heart of the occupant, and so that involves the seat, the seat rails, the seat belt, the airbag, all that stuff compounds.
But also getting the energy away from the passenger compartment and putting it somewhere else.
Exactly.
Because you don't want the doors to deform. You don't want the roof to crush or collapse or taco, anything like that. So
it is a multivariable problem.
Right.
So you can't just simplify by saying, hey, base of the B pillar, box, crumple zone, we pass crash safety. No, it's a compounding problem of how do we use the movement of the occupant to actually optimize for that entirety of the science of the crash, if you will.
Okay.
And you say the engines can go under, but if you watch the YouTube videos of all the crash tests of the different trucks, it's pretty impressive on what gets crushed and what doesn't.
Yeah, but also trucks, as you also aren't passenger cars, right? So trucks have never had to pass any sort of safety standard.
Well, that's a good question. What do you guys need to pass? Because you don't need to pass a full size pickup truck safety.
So there's three different categories of vehicle, right? There's the passenger car, MPV, and truck. Right. And we will pass both regulations for MPV and truck because we feel, to your question earlier, we want a platform that can actually do both. Right, so it's really important that we do both. But MPV and truck are very, very similar. Yeah. And there's certain things that they're exempt from. Things like certain bumper regulations, which is partially how we kind of work with the exposed front tires.
Right.
So there is some really things that are advantageous for us, but they still have to pass FMVSS 208 frontal crash safety.
Got it. Okay. And what about like side impact and rollover and all that?
Yeah. So 214, 218, 220, whatever those are referring to, all of them.
Okay. Cool.
And in like the standard way via like door beams and the safety cell, you're not doing anything crazy.
Nothing special about the sides of our vehicle. In fact, we ended up doing, because, and you accurately called it out, like our vehicle is not terribly narrow. It's still got a substantial amount of width.
73 is not super narrow. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And
it's a normal car width. Yeah.
Exactly. And the reason, and we did that because we had to actually package the occupants kind of within the frontal wheel well.
Yeah, right.
And so you actually end up with, occupants in the front that sit a little narrower than the average, but not terribly narrow. What actually gives us a ton of door room to pass side crash safety.
Yeah, and just like we said a Rivian is 79 inches. So it's like to give you some context, Land Rover Defender I think is also about 79, 80 inches wide, and then like Camry, I'm going back in my head, but like 74, 75 inches wide, something like that. So
also on the side impact, we have designed the battery to give quite a bit of space on the sides. Okay. To have so that we can have quite a bit of intrusion before we even hit any cells.
To the battery, right? But I'm sure it's armor plated like most modern packs are, and all that.
And it's got the frame on the outside, so you have to go through the door, then the frame, then you've got another like 100 millimeters of space before you actually hit a cell.
Well, let me ask you, in a terrible accident, either like high-speed frontal or something terrible from the side, where do you want the battery to go in a skateboard chassis? You want it up, down, side?
Yes. I mean, there's been some tests that's been done over China actually with batteries that drop when a crash like that happens. To various levels of success. We've never kind of experienced that. So there's some people that probably know better than we do on that side. What's really important is how do you prevent a thermal runaway event, and how do you manage a thermal runaway event? That
means fire.
Happens?
That's an engineer term for fire. Thermal runaway. Okay?
Right.
So ideally, you don't want the battery to do this, to break, right? And you don't want it to catch fire, thermal runaway, or leak or anything like that, right?
So modern cylindrical cells, and by the way, we love cylindrical cells. We chose cylindrical cells as opposed to prismatic, specifically for the hoop strength of the individual cell. Right. So you don't have to actually compress the pack in any way. Right. But individual cylindrical cells, the new ones especially, they almost all pop out the top, right? They have an event, they spit fire out the top of them. Oh. So one thing you want to do is you want to manage, if that happens, where does it go? And you absolutely do not want them that top pointed at other cells.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That would be bad.
It's like a Roman candle event. Yeah.
Yes.
Which there are other vehicles out there have done.
Sure. Oh yeah.
That's a problem.
Yes.
Okay.
So I know the one you're talking about. Yes.
So this is wild. I'm still stuck on the fact that this thing is in such a small footprint. And for those of you who are like, what are you guys talking about? Go to TELO's site or just do an image search for the TELO MT1, and you'll see how small this thing is and how there's really, like, especially in the cab, it's not quite like a VW bus or Vanagon type situation where there's like zero like between your feet and the outside, but it's pretty close. So nothing fancy on the inside. Airbags or whatever. Are you
standard off the shelf internal airbags? Yep.
Side curtain, all that stuff.
I mean, we have partnerships with safety companies that we're working on some of their big innovations they've had, and we may or may not kind of showcase some of those. But like we are definitely using proven technology in the interior of the vehicle.
And you're future proofed. You're confident, like because I know manufacturers are super annoyed at like IHS because they keep moving the goalposts. And
I mean, even talking beyond IHS, like there's rumors that America will move to the NCAP standard in the future. And so we have consultants that are...
and that really means like pedestrian safety, right?
Not just pedestrian safety, but also ADAS regulations in the future.
Right.
Smart headlights, all that stuff. Right?
All sorts of really things that are going to shake up the automotive industry if they do make those decisions. And we have consultants that we work with that have done the homologation for other major electric pickup truck platforms that we work with as well.
Okay. Interesting.
TireRack.com is your place for the best selection of tires from top brands. Always fast and free shipping and multiple convenient installation options. They also stay on the cutting edge of the tire industry. Their world-class tire testing program is truth serum for tires. EV-focused tires, products with noise-canceling technology, they've tested it all to help you make the best decision before buying. TireRack.com, the way tire buying should be.
So let's talk about A, why a truck, but also B, the capabilities of this truck. So like, it has, again, a 5-foot bed, like how much payload, would you tow with this?
Yeah. All good questions.
Yeah. Does it go off-road, all the truck stuff?
Yeah, we've got a lot to cover.
Yeah.
But this all started pretty much as a personal vendetta. So
I like it. Keep talking.
Like
this is how I think.
So I drive a Toyota Tacoma. I love my Tacoma.
Okay.
I've had it. I have 215,000 miles on my Tacoma.
What year?
2012. Manual transmission.
Oh, that's a lot.
I live in downtown San Francisco.
Yeah.
Like downtown San Francisco.
Oh, so it's all beat up on the outside. Your truck is like, it has no bumpers.
It's definitely not in the best shape, as Forrest likes to remind me. He hates driving that thing. He drives me to the airport and he'll drop me off. Like, oh, I hate driving this thing. But I have a 150-pound dog.
I'm with Forrest, but go ahead. Yeah. Okay.
150-pound dog.
Great Dane or
Anatolian Shepherd.
Anatolian. I was gonna say or Saint Bernard, but go ahead.
Yeah. So it's one of the longest lived giant breed dogs. So
right.
Definitely appreciate having him. I like to go mountain biking. I like to go snowboarding. So I love to get outside the city, but I love to take my wife out to dinner, and we spend a lot of time. And my wife's a chocolatier on the side, so she does a lot of events in downtown San Francisco.
Where is she? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Where's the chocolate?
She's watching the dog. But I can never park it outside, like in downtown San Francisco. It's impossible. I'll drop her off at an event she's doing, and I'll circle for 45 minutes and just go pick her up when she's done.
Right.
So it's like, I just want a small truck that fits in downtown San Francisco that I can do all the things I want to do with it. Right. Why doesn't it exist? And we started digging in, like, why doesn't it exist?
Yeah.
Well, there's actually reasons it doesn't exist. And kind of the regulations changed in 2010. The Environmental Protection Agency regulations changed in 2010 that forced automakers to build bigger trucks.
Yeah. We had, what was his name? The guy from Kia was explaining.
Oh, yeah, Kozowski.
Nicest guy, yeah. Jason? Jim?
Yeah.
Jason's a good name.
Yeah. But he was explaining that, like, it was EPA was just forcing longer wheelbases on everyone.
Exactly. So...
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, they were trying to force better mileage.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
but right. Sorry. The government wasn't like.
So they weren't trying to do that.
Yes, that was the unintended consequence.
The road to hell is paved in good intentions.
Yes. Yeah. Well said. Yes.
But I mean, to your audience who maybe isn't familiar, in the 1970s, EPA was established for the fuel crisis, and then they brought in all passenger cars and said you had to meet certain fuel economy regulations, but trucks were exempt.
Right.
Because if you did work,
right,
you drove a truck.
And that's why G-Wagon is considered farm equipment.
Exactly. And then in 2010, that changed. The regulations started bringing in light-duty trucks. People were calling SUVs and even CUVs light-duty trucks that, still are to this day.
Yep.
And what they said was, okay, now it's about the size of the truck you drive. If you drive a bigger truck, you must be doing more work.
That's right.
So
you're a better farmer.
You're doing way more work, so you can burn a little more gas.
Yeah.
And there's literally a graph they show that's like on the y-axis is... fuel economy.
Our friend whose name we forget from Kia showed us that graph.
Yeah.
Yes, he brought it in. Yeah.
And it's a curve that then flattens out.
Right.
And they all the sizes of trucks sit at that flat where that inflection point.
And then EVs get away from this because there's just no emissions whatsoever. So who cares what size it is?
But if you're a legacy automaker and you're saying, hey, I've built a platform for a truck that now exists on this giant scale, let me just throw 2,000 pounds of batteries at it and we're good. We did it. We made an electric truck.
Right.
And if you go to your marketing department and you say, well, what trucks do people want? They look at the last 10 years and there were no small trucks. So nobody bought small trucks. So there isn't a market for small trucks.
Sorry, so your vendetta is with who?
Big
San
trucks.
Francisco.
San Francisco? So just move,
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Mine is.
Okay. So San Francisco, but also the sort of the industry at large. Is
Well,
you're
I
trying to...
big trucks. Literally, it's just big trucks have gotten too damn big.
Right.
Like I just think.
Now, I'm sure you've had your marketing people, and Jason, I assume you're one of the marketing people. Like,
It's probably more of a marketing person than
really?
I am.
Okay. Well, you've been looking at like Maverick, and kind of like happy about that because as far as I can tell, I think it's a home run. People were hungry.
Is it a truck? Is it a truck though?
Yeah, it's a truck. Same size bed as a Rivian. Okay. But people were really hungry for a smaller truck, like a new smaller truck, not just buying old Toyotas. Is that kind of did that help inform what TELO was up to?
It was actually funny. Like after we launched as a consumer product, thinking like, hey, there's going to be so many people there's only going to be so many people that think like us.
Yeah.
We were blown away by our launch event. I know you had Reggie Watts on as one of your first guests ever in your podcast. Yeah. He posted about it on Instagram, got a bunch of likes. He talked about it on the Joe Rogan podcast.
I think that was the same podcast where he name dropped me, which was
amazing.
Really weird to hear Joe Rogan go, "Yeah, I know who Jonny Lieberman is." I was like,
all right.
Well, it's great because
thanks, Mr. Encouragement.
Joe who?
Yeah.
we had no idea that they were going to like it as much as they did. I mean, we had modest goals and we exceeded them by a good amount. But what was really interesting was talking to the people that use trucks for work and the people that reached out to us that use trucks for work. And they're saying, look, we want smaller trucks. It's a big problem.
Yeah. I mean, I was just at a race this weekend in Watkins Glen, and there was a gazillion little K trucks that run fuel all over the racetrack, fuel and oil, like, big barrels of motul all over the place. And they had a ton of them. And I guess in New York, you can take them on the street or they were just doing it. But I was behind one and it was, it was a little all-wheel drive, I don't know what they are, Suzu or something, the 660cc thing. It was just running around. But there was like lots and
Suzuki
lots.
Carry, the Honda Acti.
One of them. Yeah,
and they're super popular in farming communities.
Yes.
Like we've actually had people in Montana calling us.
Sure.
That, would like to see our truck on the roads because the K trucks don't meet a lot of safety standards and emissions standards.
They're really bad actually. Yeah. When you have a
But let me call BS slightly on this, which is, I just came back from China. I drove a bunch of EVs. This company that brought us over there had a Cybertruck that they gray market imported over there. They can't really drive it around. And I learned this big thing, which is like, you can't own like full-size pickup trucks in China. You can only drive them. They're treated as commercial vehicles. They're allowed in the tier 1 cities between like 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. for literally for deliveries only. Then you got to get out of Dodge. And that's like a hardcore rule. No pickup trucks. And I was thinking like, God, why? Surely RJ Scaringe knew this before he started Rivian. And what are all these guys doing? Why wouldn't you guys start with the one modified version I saw on your website, which is an SUV? Just put it back on. You have a version which I want to ask you about, seats up to 8 people. Mm-hmm. Like why not do that and sell it globally?
So when I tell you the story that says we're building a crew cab pickup truck the size of a 2-door Mini Cooper, or I tell you the story we're building a 3-row SUV the size of a Mini Cooper, mentally, which image sticks in your head more?
Yeah, okay. The truck is a little more compelling.
But it's both.
Okay.
But it is both.
Okay.
And also just there's this big hole in the market. So like it's nice to go into a blue ocean where there isn't any competitors. Right. And we're in this weird space where the most popular truck for 20 years was in this space. And now the space doesn't exist, but we're still in the same market.
What truck are you saying is that?
Like the Ford Rangers, the Toyota SR5s, the Datsuns.
But what about like the Maverick? Is it?
It's kind of in that
so
space,
much
but
bigger.
They're not selling a lot of them. And I think what's interesting, is that the people buying the Mavericks, there's some that are there for efficiency, there's some that are there for size, but a lot of the efficiency crowd is probably in the EV camp at this point.
Right.
And they're kind of only their niche is limited.
Right.
What about Hyundai's the Santa Cruz?
Yeah, I think that
I've seen 2 of those. Yeah.
I love that vehicle just like from a personal, like it looks like a Ute, it looks like the old, like Baja, but I know I'm weird in that sense. I think they made the cardinal sin of this sloped back. And they had a lot of people that that design element really rubs them the wrong way.
Yeah, it looks car based, not truck based.
It also feels really cheap inside to
and
me.
it's kind of expensive for what you get, which I want to bring up.
Which is a terrible powertrain in this day and age.
I want to talk about because this sounds amazing. Again, the dimensions, the power,
capability,
the range, which we didn't really talk about. Range is what 350, and you're claiming pretty fast charging, 20 to 80% in 20 minutes, like 210 miles in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
0 to 60 in 4 seconds.
Does it go
125 mile top
off-road?
speed.
Yeah.
But
10 inches of ground clearance.
Let's talk about that. But let's also talk about the price first, because you're claiming under $50,000, $49,999.
That's right. So when we surveyed the market, the average cost of a pickup truck in the U.S., do you guys know this number?
I'm going to guess it's $63,000.
61, you were close, very close. $61,000. So we knew we had to be under that kind of threshold, and that was kind of the benchmark we were working off. On top of that, we knew that there's a mental kind of cap. Like people think about $50,000 as a really big major milestone.
Yeah, sure.
Average cost of a car, I think in the U.S. is
48. But that's a year old. It's probably over there.
Probably
Well, here BS call number 2.
Yeah.
Cybertruck, we're going to be $49,000 at launch.
Sure.
F-150, we're going to be 40. None of them. They both.
The Lightning.
Sorry, Lightning. Yes, F-150 Lightning also claim to be 49. And
they can claim anything. There's no repercussions.
Yeah. So are we really talking? This is going to be like $60,000 when it comes out? Like
we're working from a backwards model with our BOM. We really want to hit those numbers. We know what our battery pack has to cost to hit those numbers.
Right.
We know what the metal we use to stamp in our vehicles has to cost to hit those numbers.
Okay.
So we're building a business model that looks at the quantity of vehicles we're going to build, the BOM cost for each of the big items over those vehicles, and we're working to get to those. We're certainly not at them today.
BOM is bill of materials.
Yeah. BOM is bill of materials. Yeah.
Yes.
And then hopefully, as we were talking about before the show, like the price of lithium keeps dropping.
Exactly.
So like if it does get to the really magical $75 a kilowatt hour, then you'll hit that number.
So are there
And the price of
exotic?
power electronics and a lot of the modules and stuff are also dropping.
Oh, they are. Yeah.
Big time.
What? Like it was.
Well, the great example we like to use is if you look at the inverter for the original Roadster, it was the size of the entire
car
trunk of the vehicle, right?
Yeah, I drove it. Yeah,
we bought a previous generation of our inverter when we built the first prototype of our vehicle that was about this size to pull about 200 horsepower, 250 horsepower.
So you're indicating about 18 inches?
Yeah. About that big.
Yeah.
Our current inverter is this big.
And
we have
that's
a path
about what,
for it
6
to be
inches?
Maybe like 7 by 7 by 4.
What's it the size of? Like a box of Pop-Tarts? Like
half a tissue box, maybe.
half a tissue box. So it's shrinking, and then when it shrinks, not only is it better tech, but it's cheaper.
Yeah, and requires less cooling, and it has a bunch of cascading effects that make things cheaper.
Okay.
You mentioned no exotic, or you didn't mention no exotic, but like the exotic materials. What is the truck made of? And is there anything super crazy?
So
fancy?
at the scale that we'll deliver it to at volume, so 5,000 above vehicles, it'll be stamped aluminum.
It's going to be aluminum.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Currently, it is made. We use our prototypes. We build them out of composites, because mold cost is significantly cheaper.
Sure.
And this is a body on frame, unibody, hybrid.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a little bit of everything to tell the truth, but I think most EVs are these days. So it is a body on frame.
It is.
Yes.
So wait, look, so Scout launched yesterday, and
Which we're going to talk about.
we're going to talk about, but they're saying body on frame, and then there are also a lot of online fights over this already. But it's like that's not a skateboard chassis.
So I think there's a good reason for this to be a fight because they're trying to use internal combustion engine nomenclature applied to electric vehicle.
Okay.
We absolutely have a skateboard. We are a skateboard platform.
Skateboard. So why are you saying it's a body on frame?
Because the skateboard itself is frame rails that run across
so it's
longitudinally.
Okay.
So you got frame rails and a battery sits in between.
Correct.
And the motor sits at either end, north, south.
And the subframe
of
on either end. Yep.
Okay. And then suspension is not air suspension?
Nope.
Okay.
Not currently, but we do want to have an option in the future to have an adjustable air suspension, but that would be an additional cost point.
Yeah, that's cost, but also it helps with a short wheelbase. I would say with ride quality, but also off-road capability. As Rivian has shown, like man, you get 15 inches of clearance, you can go over anything.
That's expensive. Yeah. How do you get 10 inches of clearance then?
With our, I'm not exactly sure to answer that question. It's
suspension geometry.
Traditional steel spring dampers.
Yeah, I mean, so we have so one thing that's really important is how we package the people in our vehicle.
Yep.
So we chose our suspension style. So we use a McPherson front.
Very normal,
because in the past, to get a longitudinal engine in the front, which has been very large, you have to push the suspension as
So
far
like
off the
a,
side
like
as
a
possible.
Volkswagen Golf famously would have a McPherson strut.
Exactly.
Because the engine sideways and there's a transmission bolted to it. And
Instead of an engine, it's kind of where your feet go. Not quite at that same place, but like they needed room for your feet. So we packaged our suspension as far away as possible with the McPherson strut front. Okay. We use an independent rear, largely because one of the problems I have with my Tacoma is that it uses a double wishbone rear, and the strut sticks up so tall that there's a wheel well covers the strut, and you don't get a full 48 inches between the wheel well structures of the vehicle. So we wanted the springs to sit underneath the bed so that you could get the full 48 inches of width on our vehicle.
Okay, that's where I was getting at, because you can claim that with this 5-foot truck bed, you can put the 4x8 sheets of plywood in the back.
So that only works when you fold I got to be careful with the
Two
word
ways,
midgate, but when you fold the interface between the back of the rear seats and the front of the bed.
Wait, is
flat.
midgate
Chevy?
is it
I don't know.
Okay, but like Chevy Avalanche / Silverado EV have this.
Hummer,
No, it's a Silverado and the GMC have it.
Okay.
But yeah, so the back of the cab folds and then and then what do you have like what Rivian does to make up for the short bed is they have a really long tailgate it's a 2-piece tailgate when you fold it down.
We don't have that.
You don't. Okay.
No.
Regular
wait. I was saying the 4x8s go into the back because with the midgate, I'll call it sue me. The midgate goes down, but where does the plywood sit on top of the hump in the interior, the wheel wells on the inside of the truck?
Yes,
no, in between.
In between.
In between. Okay.
So the hump for the wheel wells are literally just for the tire clearance, not for the strut clearance.
Yes. Right. Okay.
Cool.
Oh wow.
And that means the tailgate can be closed when the midgate to him is down. And
That's right.
that's impressive. That's good. So it's like get a refrigerator back there.
You could.
Yeah.
Certainly. We think about it as like a use case that we see is we have a lot of surfers that live in like LA and San Francisco that want to park their surfboards in the car and close the tonneau cover and have it all locked.
Okay.
And we see that as a use case.
So this is a surfer right here who.
Yeah.
No, you're not a surfer.
No, I'm just taking it all in. Like, I can put a surfboard in any car, so it's not a big deal. I am curious though about this 8-passenger setup. So do you have, again, on the website, there's a picture where you put a second 3-row bench in the back of the truck, and theoretically you put a cover on it, and something about a footwell?
Yeah, so our storage area that is in the rear of the vehicle, we call it the monster tunnel because it's under the bed.
Well, monsters under the bed. Got it.
Zing. Okay, good. Thanks.
So
Good.
it's
Very
our
funny.
monster tunnel. There's an access panel to our monster tunnel from the front of the bed.
Okay.
And if you imagine, that's about a 12-inch drop from the bed.
Perfect for a
footwall for a
Got
third
it.
row of seats.
Okay.
How do you access? Sorry. How is it? How big is the panel that lifts up?
It's about 2 feet by 4 feet, or 1.5 by 4 feet, roughly.
Now, all the haters who hate the original Ridgeline are like, "Well, how are you supposed to access it if you put something on top of it?"
Ed loves the Ridgeline.
Yeah. So it opens facing the front, like forward.
It fully removes. So in order to get the
It's just
footwell,
a piece out. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it. And that there's no battery under there or anything
Nope,
like that.
it's
It's
fully-
just a space you guys found and turned into the monster
exactly.
tunnel.
Okay.
Yeah, the battery's under the tunnel.
Right. Okay. Cool.
and since the 4 inches tall, it lets us really
And
optimize
would
for
a
space.
spare tire fit in there?
We've tried and not quite in
yeah.
there. Spare tires are funny enough, hard to fit.
Yeah, Rivian figured it out, but it's like I put aftermarket tires on my truck and like couldn't have it inflated. The Pirellis were designed just to fit.
But this additional seating, this would be a future variant.
Yeah, so it needs to be homologated with a third row. When you have a passenger that is going to be enclosed in a vehicle on roads, you need to make sure that it meets specifically the side impact rating. So that would have to be a additional homologation, but we won't have to re-homologate everything. It'll be homologating that particular addition to the vehicle.
And where would you put the seat belt attachment? Would they be
It's all got to be integrated. Yeah,
on the seats?
it's got to be structurally strong on the seats. It's got to be a shoulder belt because you're not allowed to have just lap belts anymore.
Yes.
Right.
So a lot of that's not going to be a variant that you're going to get on day one.
Right.
Would that be the MS one? Would you call it
Something like that. We'll figure it out.
Go trademark that real quick. Okay. Looking for the best off-road trails? OnX Off-Road has you covered. With over 750,000 miles of trails and comprehensive offline maps, you can explore without worrying about cell service. Easily find trails for 4x4s, ATVs, dirt bikes, and more. Our app provides detailed trail info, including difficulty ratings and open/closed dates. onX Off-Road also helps you navigate public and private land boundaries, ensuring you stay legal. Try onX Off-Road free for 7 days and discover why it's the go-to app for off-roaders. Download now. All right, so I think we covered...
Well, I want to talk a little bit about like off-road. I mean, you said you were going up in the mountains and skiing and all that. Like, so what is this thing's chops? What's the capability?
It won't do the Rubicon,
Okay,
so I just want to make sure we.
that's fine.
Why not?
Well, because
Articulation?
you need 35-inch tires by regulation right now to do the Rubicon.
Yeah, I mean, you get, this company Rivian we keep talking about, they did it in their stock SUV on stock
You're
tires.
supposed to do it with 35-inch tires, which
but
they
they
say.
did it. The thing's capable, but yeah, I mean, it's you need more than 10 inches of ground clearance to do the Rubicon these days. Yeah.
It's going to be. I mean, we like to say light off-roading.
Okay. So I can go skiing with it.
Absolutely.
I can throw my skis on the bed.
Skiing and mountain biking, absolutely the use case. If you work in like a compound that has a lot of off-road trails that you need to get places, we've talked about people that work in an Air Force base that has maintenance roads.
Yeah, sure.
That's exactly where we're
or an airport or
exactly.
And there's no
sites.
differential hanging down in the middle. Too.
Right,
So,
so
you
you
see
really
trucks
get
that are
10
really
inches of
jacked up, but then their
Pumpkins
differential
are
is
on the
8
ground.
inches above
Yeah.
the ground.
Will it have like a flat bottom, like a fully enclosed flat bottom?
Well, it has ridges on it for structural purposes, but flat for the most
How
part.
about it? Please tell me it doesn't have a glass roof, right? Does it have a glass roof?
We're
still?
looking at different cool things to do with the roof right now.
It has a glass roof right now.
Right now, it has a glass roof.
Why?
What would you like to see?
Is that
guys?
because you're from
Oh,
Tesla?
well,
Why?
it's California.
Why?
It's
Yeah.
Carcinoma
Think
is a
about-
thing.
Well,
Like,
there's this phenomenon called global warming, where every year the planet gets hotter and hotter and more miserable.
solar load,
And
right? You know,
electric
when they-
AC,
yeah.
electric AC still kind of sucks. So like you're burning a lot of your battery, your range to just get to human temperatures.
Glass is heavy.
Well, I mean, glass is heavy-ish, but I know it gives you more headroom, and that's why Tesla did it, right? I mean, right? The Model S, that was the idea.
Definitely gives us more headroom. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
but there's no way. Like, can't steel give you more headroom, or
It could.
Carbon fiber.
or something?
Could be carbon fiber. I mean, it
Okay.
also could be things like a solar panel.
Okay, that's thin. Or it could be thin.
Small
right?
solar panel. Come on. Okay, I just hate glass roofs. That's I'm on record
I
for
also
that.
hate glass, and I had.
For the solar gain or for the
Yeah,
for other
yes,
it's
reasons?
just too hot.
Yeah.
It's just, now I will say we drove the new Rivian, and we were
And the ID Buzz has a pretty
ID4,
good
yeah.
electrochromic.
the electrochromatic
roof.
did really solve it. It was a very hot day. It's it's 90% solved.
But it's
still,
like
it's
I've
metal.
hated these roofs and since before the dawn of EVs, when like
Yeah.
the Germans, in particular, the Audi would put these stupid mesh covers that
Yeah.
still let the light
filtered
through.
the sun
and it's
onto your
because they're
head.
from a part of the world that sees sunlight like one season a year.
Right.
Like the rest of us live in California. Like this is like we wear baseball caps in cars because of this.
It's too hot. Yeah.
So anyways,
and
it's
this
personal
will
brand.
be your biggest market, whether you like it or not.
It's already our biggest market by far.
Yeah.
Yeah, so-
LA is
So a lot of reservations, you're saying.
yeah, and a lot of them are coming from LA
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just a big market.
How much is there a cost to reserve?
There is $152. $1
Is it?
for every inch our vehicle is.
Tolerant.
We were actually we
like
had
that.
such a long Forrest and I were yelling at
Yeah.
each other for like months trying to figure out what the dollar amount was, and it just came to the conclusion like 152 is the right
I mean,
number.
that's $52 more than like the Cybertruck, but okay.
yeah,
Fully refundable.
fully refundable.
Okay.
Okay.
You want to
Ooh.
disclose how many you got?
Over 3,500.
Okay.
Ooh,
Okay.
I might throw one in. That's kind of interesting.
Okay. And so 49,000. And then when do you think this is gonna? When will this come to market?
Yeah, so I mean, without sitting here and trying to spit too much BS at you, we are going to have an announcement coming in the new year with
Okay.
our vehicles, which we'll showcase.
It's late October 2024.
That's right. That's
So
the time.
January 25
And I'm not telling you exact dates yet.
in the new year.
In the new year. In the early section of the new year.
Q1.
I won't tell you exact dates.
Okay.
And then we'll talk a lot about the timelines at that event.
Okay. And you guys have a factory?
We have a manufacturing partnership at this standpoint for low volume.
Have you
vehicles.
announced it?
We have with Aria Group.
And
Oh,
they're
right.
yeah.
They did
here.
ProDrive.
Mhm.
Yeah,
They're doing
Irvine.
Nilu. The first 15 Nilus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I was just there.
The guy, the part
Yeah,
is.
they've been around for 20 years.
Yeah.
Clive.
Yeah.
They're great. They make all the show cars.
They worked on Tesla. And
They do Rizvani.
Yep, they do the Rizvani vehicles.
Yeah.
What's his name? He's a Brit.
Clive.
Clive. Yes.
Yeah. Super cool guy.
Clive's awesome.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, that's
And-
that's good.
And Clive
But
reached out to
that's
us. Yeah.
low production.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So what in your business plan / fantasy, like what volume do you want to get to? Or
Yeah. So and I've talked about this publicly, so don't mind necessarily saying it, but a lot of, I think, the challenges that new EV makers have had, the graveyard of electric vehicle companies, the $280 billion that have been spent on electric vehicle startups in the last 10 years. Right. A lot of them, the problem can kind of be summarized as they tried to get to high volume production without having a vehicle on the road.
Right.
So I think a lot of what we're trying to do is how do we actually kind of flip that story? How do we get to a profitable, gross margin profitable vehicle at mid volumes, that graveyard of death for a lot of vehicle companies.
And so, how do you define mid volume?
5 to 10,000 vehicles per year is the mid volume.
Right. Okay,
crossover
so that's
point.
like when back in the day, like I remember in like this God, I've been doing this too long. 20 years ago, like Maserati was like, we're gonna get to 10,000, and like
Aston Martin.
We're gonna get to 10,000. That was like this magic number. If you can get to 10,000, Lucid, I think this year they're gonna get to 10,000, and they said if we can do that, we're going to be okay. And so that's the magic number.
That's the magic. And a lot of that's being informed by one of our investors and our advisor, Andy Palmer, ex-CEO of Aston Martin.
Yeah.
Ex-CEO at Nissan.
Good friend of mine. Yeah. He owes me a beer. Andy, you owe me a beer.
He's awesome. He helped build our financial model to enable that.
Oh, okay.
So, a lot of what we're doing is kind of how do we make sure, and we talked about BOM costs, all driven towards that 5 to 10,000 vehicle per year. And we don't want to stop there. We want to get to high volume production, but we want to hit that milestone before we even think about building our own factories.
Okay. But then what would be, again, in your fantasy, what is, how many vehicles a year if you're doing the truck and the SUV? What are we looking at?
So, I mean, talking 20 years from now, I think, when we talk about the future of transportation, there's a lot of people that are very passionate about this topic. But we think that, especially in downtown cities, the area, the demographic we're going after, there's going to be autonomous vehicles. There's going to be micromobility. There'll be flying taxis, maybe. There'll be...
Seems to be happening soon, but yes. Yeah.
There'll be robo-taxis for sure.
For sure.
But, well, I mean, if you go to downtown San Francisco, I take a Waymo all the time.
We got Waymos here, yeah. I guess that's right. Okay, yeah.
So, I mean,
to me, that's a regular car that just drives itself.
I mean, those will all exist in the future, but what won't go away is the utilities, the service, the maintenance, the trucks that do work in downtown cities, and the people that want to get away from the city on the weekends. Right. That won't go away.
Right.
And so we want to solve the problems of that from the tiny truck to the bigger truck that's doing the work in the construction site. Right. So when we look at that total market, we think that that's 1 million vehicles a year we could satisfy.
Wow.
In the long term.
That's
and
huge.
We think every single one of them are twice as big as they need to be and 4 times as inefficient as they should be to do their job.
I'm right there with you because I always give him a hard time about how I think overpowered the Rivian and all the pickup trucks are. You don't need that much.
Underpowered.
And you guys are still delivering 500 horsepower. But I want to ask on the way to this because this is great. You're trying to have profitability in the 5 to 10,000 unit range at a cost of sub $50,000, and the two customers you have described that I can remember is yourself. So the
urban adventure
urban adventure where this would probably be their one and only vehicle.
That's right.
And then some rancher in Montana who this is probably like their 5th or 6th, and it's a commercial working vehicle.
And then also like the city worker.
Yeah.
Or a fleet.
So when we talk about the consumer, we talk about the urban adventure, and there's a lot of people that fit into that category, I believe. But and they project that by the year 2030. 75% of Americans will live in downtown cities, and by the year 2050, it'll be over 90.
Right.
So, but then there's the commercial side of things, and that's where we're really trying to dig in here. And we've kind of segmented our market into 4 different areas. We have the construction and contractor.
Right.
We have the services, maintenance, and utilities. We have the agriculture.
Gentleman rancher.
Yeah. And then we have the mid-mile delivery, which is also an interesting little area to us. And we talk about store-to-story balancing in that category.
Because I was in Oslo in February, March, and what was interesting was most of the city vehicles seemed to be VW ID buzzes, and they were just doing everything from not
ID buzz.
Yeah,
the
ID
electric,
buzz.
the van.
Yeah, the van, the short wheelbase van. They've been out for years. We just didn't get them until now.
Yeah, I wish we got the shorter.
But they were doing I saw somebody doing like flower maintenance with one. Another one was recycling. Yeah, whatever. Whatever. But they had flowers and manure coming out of the back of the van. I was just walking around like, why? We don't even have these yet, and they're already city vehicles. But they were using them for every single thing. And Oslo's dead silent because there's no internal combustion in the city. It was really kind of weird, actually. It was just
kind of
different.
Nice, right?
yeah. It was freezing, but it was cold and silent. It was very Scandinavian. But I was just oh, this is interesting that they went with Volkswagen. What I mean, Austin's not that big, but good contract for VW to get. So I can see how you'd want to obviously get some city contract.
Is there any other user profile you want to describe that this is for? Like you got the city guy, you got the commercial you heard. Is there anything else?
I think an interesting one that I encounter quite a bit in where we are in San Carlos is kind of an like older school business owner that doesn't see themselves in an electric vehicle and has big trucks, and they're like, oh, this would be great for like a get around town truck.
Oh, right.
And I think that would be a really good entry point, because I have found in my own personal family, we got the Leaf, and then as soon as we got the first electric
number
vehicle,
600 Leaf.
Yeah, I got the first Leaf you could get. You know, the family was like, oh, and all of a sudden you start to shift how you use it in your life, because it's the cheapest way to get around. And like all of a sudden you have the choice between a truck that basically costs nothing for you to take it somewhere, and one that every time you start it up, that's like a maintenance cost. But
also parking, like you said, I mean, that definitely plays into people's thinking. It's like, oh, wait, when I get to where I'm going, this has to go somewhere.
It's so stressful to drive into a downtown. I used to live right outside of San Francisco, and I would drive into the city, and that feeling of like, oh God, how long is it going to take me to find parking?
Well, I mean, that's the worst part of San Francisco, despite what everyone says, is actually the parking. I mean, it's just, when I live there.
So you still have that Leaf?
Yeah. I have 93,000 miles on it.
How's the battery doing?
They warranted it at 5 years. That was, oh my gosh, like what, 7 years ago?
You still get, how much state of charge are you getting?
I get like 65 miles on it. But I drive it to work every day. I've never been late to work because the car's broken down. Right,
and you're charging. It's CHAdeMO, right? You're still.
I charge on a 110 outlet every day for the last since 2011. How many?
My friends, they're a married couple of JPL engineers, and like he designed he worked on the rover that went to Mars recently, and the wife worked on the helicopter that flew off the rover. And they had a first gen Leaf, and their battery was at a 30%. That's all. But they had to like drop the kid off and then go to JPL. It was like 2 miles, and they're like, we're gonna get every nickel out of this car. The original, the blue one.
Yeah.
Next time you talk to Andy, definitely ask him about the headlights on the Nissan.
Oh, they're so good.
That's a good question. So Andy Palmer, for those who don't know, he was a big wig at Nissan. Then he became the CEO of Aston Martin, and then he was famously out. But how did you guys get hooked up with Andy?
That's a good story.
Yeah.
So
we're all about good stories.
And I know that that Rowan's gonna hate when he hears this story. So
is Simon Sproul involved?
Yes, Simon's involved. Not in the story. Simon came after.
Oh, okay.
But Simon's been involved.
Simon, again, is Andy's right hand, PR legend, but right hand man.
And he's certainly helping us out too.
He's great. We love
and
Simon.
He's great. Yeah. He's amazing, and he's actually coming up to visit us this week.
Cool.
And he's down here. So Mark Tarpenning, founder of Tesla, been a long-time advisor of Forrest for the many years he's worked in the EV space. Forrest hasn't mentioned is that he has like one of the most prolific backgrounds in EV startups. He was the founder of PlugShare.
Sold to EVgo.
Yeah, one of the first electric motorcycle startups.
Mission Motors.
Yeah.
Broke the land speed record for electric motorcycles.
Nice.
He's got
raced on the Isle of Man, the first TTX.
Oh, so you're insane.
I didn't drive it.
You didn't drive it.
He was the CEO.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. But the person who drove it, Tom Montano, that is.
They're crazy. That's the most mental thing on the planet. Yeah.
2.5 people die a year.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah.
So Mark's been involved in Forrest kind of life for a long time, and Forrest introduced Mark when we started our company, and he's actually one of the first people we consulted and said, hey, you're sort of thinking about doing. He's like, you guys are crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, you'll never be able to fit that many people into the vehicle.
Sure. And
we came back with Mark, and after a year later, and we're like, I guess this was just in December of last year, we're like, come check out what we did. And he saw it, he's like, holy crap.
Yeah.
This is real. This is legit. I love it. And he was a major investor in the last in the round that we just raised.
Oh, nice.
So
what round are you on?
So we raised we closed our seed round, called it our seed round. But we've raised about $8 million, a little over $8 million.
How did Andy get in?
Yeah, so Andy. So Mark Tarpening's son, high school son, was our intern the first summer of our company. And he was, I wonder how much I should say here. He was dating a girl whose father was the lead aerodynamicist for the Aston Martin race team.
Okay.
Who was still very much in touch with Andy, of course, because he'd been involved in this and the racing and things like that. So Andy was coming to the Bay Area to meet him, and he's like, I'd like to also meet some startups in the Bay Area. Can you introduce us to anybody? It's like, well, I've got some kind of through the grapevine here.
Right, here's these guys doing this thing. Yeah.
Andy came on board. First thing he saw was Forrest's first generation Leaf, and he's like, they geeked out over that for
Right, because Nissan, right?
Yeah,
This was how many years ago?
This was over a year ago, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Over a year ago.
Yeah.
But then we gave him, you just kind of gave him the pitch and said, hey, here's what we are doing. And he was like, okay, this is unique and different, and it's what we need in the world. And he was totally bought in. He's like, so he's an investor and then an advisor, and we talk to him every 2 weeks.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah.
So yeah, he's been incredible in terms of the amount of like time and energy he's put towards us. We've been blown away by it.
Right.
So what did you show him? You had the mock-up?
What did we show him? I think we showed him a plywood.
The buck. I think I saw. Yeah.
Yep.
Like an H-point model.
An H-point model. Yeah. I think he showed him some designs.
Seating.
I think we showed him the battery technology we had developed, and he was like, "Okay, this is great."
Mm-hmm.
And then the one other co-founder we haven't mentioned is Yves.
Yeah.
Yves Behar.
Behar.
He's design legend. He's responsible for the overall look and feel, but also you guys, what do you call the side, the pill? It's like a pill.
Yeah.
It looks like a pill. Okay.
Called the pill.
Okay. You have this pill graphic in the side that also is aped in the door handles too, right?
It's in the lights and a lot of other design elements of the vehicle.
Why a pill?
Why do I know that name? What was Yves designed?
He's launched, I think, over 100 products. I was introduced to him. Also, another Tesla connection early on. Jessica Switzer was the first chief marketing officer at Tesla and planned out their launch for the Roadster.
Yeah.
She introduced me to Eve when I started Mission Motors.
Okay.
And then she orchestrated us kind of launching it at TED in 2009, same time as Aptera, actually. So we worked together on the Mission Motors and project. And then, so I knew kind of what he could do, and I knew what he was interested in doing. He was also in the same class as Henrik Fisker. He's
an art center guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Henrik.
Henrik. Former guest of...
on the Inevitable.
No, the Inevitable. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
All right.
We're running out of time, and I got a couple of big questions. So we talked a lot about the hardware. We've talked about the range, the specs, all that stuff. What's going on inside the car from a software perspective? And because you mentioned autonomy, you're like, hey, robotaxi is going to happen. You guys have plans on this thing being crazy autonomous, or we got some cool AR, VR, AI? Like
our goal is to use the technology that's been developed for those things and use it to make the vehicle owning and driving experience better. So through safety, through however, but not to make an autonomous vehicle.
Yeah, so we do have software team working on software architecture and things like that. We use almost all entirely off-the-shelf components. But what's important is that I think a lot of companies have competed on the user experience, the screen, the seating, because they haven't differentiated on the vehicle itself, the use case of the vehicle.
Fair. Yeah.
When you're building a quasi teardrop shaped crossover that looks the same as every other generic crossover, then you need to be really unique in the interior. We think the experience of driving our vehicle is really what we want to kind of bring to the table.
Interesting. So you're not going to brag about you got NVIDIA Drive Orin chipset in there? Or
we'll have a NVIDIA
Qualcomm
chipset for a lot of our ADAS features because that's kind of what the state of the art right now.
Yeah.
But
just 1, 2, 4? No, I'm serious.
We literally have one right now.
Just one?
That's it in the architecture. But I think that people are going to develop really strong autonomy stacks in the future, and we want to have our vehicle enabled for that.
Right.
But
so
I think
fast follow.
Yeah, it's not a smart thing for us to focus on everything at once.
But I talked to the Neo, this Neo rep, and she's like, we got 4 Drive Orin chips in the cars now because they're future proofing. Unlike, because they've been upfront. We're copying Tesla, but Tesla keeps having to update on hardware. They keep having to add hardware 3, hardware 4. We're going to build it in the beginning, which is insane, right? Because none of these Chinese companies are profitable yet. So it's like you're dumping a lot of hardware in here that you don't need right now.
So I've worked on autonomy for years, and one of the misnomers I think you're going to see is that, maybe they developed a Orion chipset, but in 5 years the chipset's going to be out of date. There's going to be a way better chipset with way more and even the interface for the camera, the FPD link or GMSL. If you would have designed that in 3 years ago, we're in 2 generations ahead of that right now. So it's like, what's the point in doing that if you're going to have to redo it all anyway?
That's right.
How but it seems to me as someone who reviews EVs professionally, what is kind of key though to the user experience is good software. I mean, I think when the ID4 came out, it was rightly kind of thrashed and panned because the software was really, really bad. They've improved it radically.
Still terrible.
Still terrible, but it is improved. But Rivian is just knocking them out of the park with the user experience. I was showing my 7-year-old the Halloween costumes, and he loves Back to the Future, and he was flipping out that like from his seat he could stare at a flux capacitor. You know what I mean? Like, so like how big is the software team, and how how's that experience going to be?
Yeah, I
And
mean,
and obviously over the year updates and all the good stuff.
And our whole team as a whole is relatively small.
Sure.
Say like
I don't mean how big, but I mean like how, like, you know, when the company scales. No, but when the company scales, like, you know, is it gonna be software engineer heavy, or are you battery tech heavy, or you know what I'm saying? So
I mean, the area that we're in, like the ones that you've mentioned that have good software, including Tesla,
Rivian.
That is the area we're in. That is the network that we have. Like that's kind of a baseline given.
Got it.
That software needs to be excellent. Like software enables, you know, hardware enables software, software enables hardware. Like you've got to have them both.
Right.
So right now we're focused on the hardware because that is the longest lead.
The
longest lead time to get things made and done. The software,
but you're cognizant that like you need to have a good
cognizant,
software experience to
the software-defined vehicle.
buy people in. Yeah.
The software-defined vehicles is just is standard now, and there's so many companies that are, especially startups, that are doing amazing things to automate that, either using AI tools or using default kind of industry standard for how to build ECU and structure that from a software perspective. Like, so every single year they get so much better.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily make sense to us to write in like Objective-C code for something that today's our state of the art, when in 1 year it's going to be much better.
Right. Okay. I got you. Okay.
I want to circle back on one thing, because the truck fans are going to be like, you guys didn't even ask them what payload.
They're already mad.
What payload and what
1,600 pounds.
1,600 pound payload.
6,600 pound towing.
6,600 pound
Now,
payload.
So
a truck, electric truck, is still not the best thing to go tow anything cross country.
totally agree. Yeah.
So we don't think that's our use case. We think the real use case for towing is, we'll take your boat out of the water and take it to the marina.
Right.
Pick up a big pallet of things from Home Depot and bring it to your job site.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what we think the use case is.
But 1,600 pounds is pretty good payload.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to think, like a Lightning is what, like, it's
How much will the truck?
1,700?
How much will the truck weigh?
because that's the thing is like as those trucks get bigger, it affects their payload.
Yes.
Right.
So it's like we have the advantage of actually being quite light.
Yeah.
So the truck's base curb weight is 4,400 pounds. And we have a GVWR of over 6,000 pounds, which will put us into the Class 2 truck territory. And you asked the question about FMVSS early, and we made that distinction very important, so we would be in that Class 2 category.
And so 4,400 pounds is like a Model Y RAV4 hybrid those are about 4,400 pound vehicles.
That's right.
So it's not.
And you get the Class 2 because there's
mostly state regulations, because
some tax incentives.
Move a lot of hay around.
yeah.
Okay.
That's
It's the incentive.
Farm equipment.
But then when you
incentives.
are off road, having a vehicle that doesn't weigh 9,000 pounds is quite advantageous in a lot of situations on snow and loose gravel, steep hills.
Snow, I'll give you snow. I was gonna say I've done
Lightness is the
but I've
final
done-
frontier. Lightness is a final frontier for EVs.
I'm just gonna say like EVs, four motor EVs off road is like that's a real advantage, and they do weigh a lot. But man, I just took the electric G-Wagon off roading, and I was just like.
So
like never went past 10% throttle to go up a double black trail. It's insane.
you do the tank turn.
I did the tank turn, which is a dorky thing, but what's a cool thing was because it's four motor, they have like a tight turn mode. So it's not G turn. It's called like, I don't know, off road assist turn or something stupid. But it spins one of the wheels backwards as you're turning, and so it basically just makes a U-turn slowly in place. It's insane.
Wow.
So, yeah, tight turn assist, I think it's called.
That's cool.
But it's wild.
So I
It's
want to
really wild.
close out because we're over time, which means it's a good thing. It means it's an awesome conversation. We keep going, but I want to close out with a lightning round because you guys are the newest, the latest. Probably not, actually not the latest, but we'll talk
Somebody
about those
else
guys.
came out this week, I think.
Yes, I know. That's what we're talking about. So let's do a lightning round on the current state of electric pickup trucks. So starting with Rivian was the first. What do you guys like Rivians? You guys
Yeah,
big
absolutely.
fans? Okay.
You know,
They're great. They're just still big. We love everything about them, but it's a big truck.
It's a huge truck, and it's an expensive, complicated truck. Yeah.
you know, 70. We talked about 7,100 pounds. You
Something
know,
like that, yeah.
It's 212 inch, 17
yeah,
inch long.
217 inches
Yeah.
long for the truck. Yeah, I
How
know.
about Lightning? How about F-150 Lightning?
You know, 231 inches long.
So that would be harder to park in San Francisco than a Rivian.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're just gonna do the size game. I was just gonna like anything else you'd like fundamentally like or dislike.
Just kind of
about that?
bland. You know, I think the F-150 doesn't excite, you know, on any design element. So it's really
Okay.
just to see.
They electrified a vehicle.
Electrified a
It's not
vehicle.
it's not a
Okay.
software defined
How about
I'm proud of them.
the GM products, the Hummer, the Silverado EV,
Well, the
GMC.
Silverado EV is I think it's going to have a really nice use case, especially for people that are really range anxiety people, because it's really got the range to kind of back it up. But but talk about, I'm not going to use the length as an example, but it weighs 8,800 pounds.
Yeah.
And like that's all, like that's a problem for a couple of reasons. One, we're at an all-time high in pedestrian deaths. Two, you're 10 times more likely to die getting struck by a giant truck than a small car if you're in another vehicle. And then like you're tearing up tires and roadways and everything like that. Having a heavy vehicle has a lot of disadvantages.
Totally. But also, the size of the battery too is just it's such an inefficient.
It's like 212.
It's a negative feedback loop, right?
It's 212. But man, the range is great.
Yeah. When you make the vehicle bigger, it requires more energy to push it through air. It requires more energy to overcome rolling resistance. So you have to make the battery bigger, which makes it heavier.
But you can tow far. you can actually tow with a Silverado.
Exactly, which is why we don't think it's a competitor to ours necessarily. People that are looking at that probably aren't looking at a TELO.
Right.
And then we'll get to.
Well, how about the Ram EREV?
Well, that's my last one.
How about EREVs in general?
Let's talk about the one that came out, Scout. Because we are recording the day after
Scout.
That VW Group announced that their standalone brand they bought,
the Scout Terra,
is going to come out with 2 vehicles. Scout pickup truck.
The Traveler is the SUV, and the Terra is the quite large, surprisingly large truck.
It looks like a total Rivian ripoff.
Sorta.
Or not. Sorry. What are your thoughts?
What they've announced online is the 91.6 inches wide. It must be with the mirrors. I don't know.
It's 100% with the mirrors. That was such a rookie mistake. But yeah, I'm going to guess it's like 80 inches wide or 82 inches wide.
Sure.
It can't be 91 because a Ram TRX, which is wider than a Hummer H1, is 88 inches wide. Hummer H1's 86.
Yeah, and the Hummer EV is also, I think, 86.7 or something.
Yeah, but again, the Ram TRX is wider, and the Ram TRX is ridiculous. So.
Yeah. I think that they're a big truck. They're
huge.
They're a huge truck.
It's F-150 size.
Exactly. And they're geared towards off-roading, that 35-inch tire.
Right.
They're really getting that. Like what I think we've missed in EVs a lot is like people that are really emotionally like passionate about them. And I think bringing back a brand that people are really emotional to is always a great thing. Especially moving people towards electrification. I think that the ID Buzz is another great example of that. I mean, we need more of that to get people excited about the.
We need an ID Buzz pickup, but that's a different story.
Sure, yeah. I mean,
TriStar.
But what do you think? What do you think about again, they're basically launching a vehicle that's the size of a Lightning, and
it looks like a Rivian.
It looks like a Rivian, but they're claiming a 300. So a Lightning is a 270 mile range.
280. It's a 280, but really it'll fit 300 and it'll go
300, but
330 with the big battery.
Okay, so Scout's saying 350, so it's going to be another massive battery, right?
Yeah, I think that's the outcome.
They didn't say, but
yeah, I mean, our math says it has to be at least 150 kilowatt hours.
Okay.
So I mean, that's a hard thing to hit. Cost points.
That means it's a 7,000 pound vehicle minimum.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's hard to hit the cost points with a battery that big.
Right.
I mean, they've gone pretty aggressive on their costing, so which makes assumptions that the cost of batteries will be a certain value at that point.
They also have the scale of Volkswagen Group to get componentry down, and hey, we want 1 billion chips.
I'm very skeptical they're going to deliver on time at that price.
Well, on time they said 2027, so there's 3 years. So I hope Volkswagen Group could get a vehicle out.
ID Buzz. Let's talk about how
it was out. It just wasn't here. They see the American market as just a nut they cannot crack.
Tiny, insignificant.
So,
but they also announced. This is where I was getting to because I want to ask you about Ram Charger, Ram Rev, and Ram Charger. EREV now has been dropped by Scout. We've been talking to different people like
Nissan,
Jim Farley from Ford is like,
Ford.
EREVs are coming. Obviously, Stellantis is dropping the Ram Charger.
Is this cowardice on their part?
Like, do you believe?
Are they cowards? Is Jim Farley a coward? You can say it.
Do you believe we need to walk through this valley of EREVs to get to the EV promised land, or like what's going on? Why are they?
Why is this?
When the Scout was announced, I wasn't surprised by the EREV, but I was a little bit surprised, but it wasn't a diesel EREV.
Volkswagen's never going to sell a diesel in America again.
Yes, that makes more sense.
Nip that in the bud. But I was surprised it was 350 electric range, 500 total with the EREV, so it's like barely an extender.
So they take out part of the battery to put a gas tank. Is what they said.
At
least they said in the announcement.
Okay.
But
because that doesn't seem like
I think it's a marketing thing. I mean, the i3 kind of did that as well, and then they ended up not really selling very many that had that engine.
That had some fundamental problem. They announced it, built it, got onto the ports and said, well, we can't actually sell this for like an emissions reason or something.
Maybe that's different, but from the numbers I saw, it seemed like there were some people that were interested in it, and maybe it drove people to think, oh, this is an optionality kind of thing.
I also think of it as like psychic goalpost moving. Because there's a lot of people that are like, God, I love the way that Scout looks, but I can't buy an EV. Oh, it wastes gasoline? Great, I'll buy it. Even though it's a giant EV.
Just real quick. So for those listening at home, EREV, electric range extended vehicle. It's fundamentally an electric vehicle. It's got a little engine in it that acts as a generator to charge the battery.
Or in the case of the Ram, a massive engine. It's a Pentastar. It's
Sure.
a 3.6 liter V6.
They had it.
But it's
Right?
still never, the vehicle itself is always moved under electric power. And the idea is that it's the best of both worlds, that you can drive it around, you can plug it in, drive it around. If you have a home charger or easy access charger, you might never put gas in it. But if you do want to go on a long distance road trip or you want to tow something,
And you don't want to go to a charger.
you have the convenience of filling up at a gas station. So the question back to you guys is, because now I'm hearing that all these companies are, this is the pivot, this is this moment, we got to it's the bridge to full electrification. You guys gonna do any? You gonna put a
No.
no room, right? No.
Well, yes, there's no room. We could not go after the market we're going after without our vehicle being fully electric. So like one of the really important things that people are doing is they're building these multi-platform vehicles that could be gas, they could be electric, they could be hybrid, and it really, doesn't really. So it's a generic worst of all worlds kind
It's
of
a
problem.
camel. Yeah. It's a
Like
camel.
we're going after a market that doesn't exist. It's unserved.
Right.
Trucks in downtown cities. It's only possible because it's fully electric.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And we're just trying to cram as much capability as we can into the smallest footprint. And so to add something that's kind of superfluous, not people
More
are going to use all the
cost.
time.
Way more cost.
When I know you're announcing things at some nebulous point in the new year, but when does your vehicle? When can I go buy it? Let's say I put a deposit down today. When do I get it?
If you put a deposit down today.
Today. Yeah.
Because we have a wait list of 3,500 people.
Okay.
You probably wouldn't see it until.
Let's say I put my
least-
deposit down 5 years ago or whatever.
All
Number
right,
one.
Well, we have ambitions to have our first customer deliverable vehicle at the end of 2025.
Oh.
Now, that may have been slightly aggressive, but
So
we'll
we can say
see.
20. I'm saying if it's 26, and this, Forrest, maybe more of a question for you, but does battery technology advance in between the end of 24 and sometime in 26, where like, hey, we could go smaller or we could get more energy dense, and like suddenly instead of, and again, I think 350 is plenty of range, but hey, we could get a 400 mile range. Like, how fast is battery technology advancing?
It's advancing about 7% a year. Kind of between 5 to 8% a year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but after
Adds
10
up,
years, it doubles.
Yeah.
And we've seen that. And we're still, and the other kind of, that's just kind of a generic percentage, but you can look at what's in the lab. And what's in the lab is generally twice as good as what's out there.
Yeah.
But it'll take 5 to 7 years for it to come out. So we're still on that path, and there's still solid state, which a lot of people are pinning a lot of hopes on, and certainly we
Everyone
want to see
seems
that.
to be making solid state announcements. Like, it's who did it like 2 days ago? There was
Stellantis is going to put solid state into the
27
charger.
ahead of Toyota, which is like
QuantumScape just had an announcement recently too.
Yeah,
But in the meantime, 2170s are getting cheaper.
right.
They're getting better in a lot of ways as well. They're getting less prone to thermal runaway.
We couldn't light our pack on fire initially.
Yeah.
And we literally took
Yeah.
the original old cells and then took the new cells and couldn't actually get it to ignite without doing
Right,
something.
yeah, I always have this conversation with people. I'm like, how easy it is to light gas on fire? That's what an engine does. It lights gas on fire. Because like Mercedes, when the G580 electric G-Wagon came out, they did this like buried press release the same day where they said, hey, within 18 months we're gonna have this new chemistry, lithium sodium, which will be 20% more power dense in the same size battery. Do you know anything about that?
I don't have
or
anything
it's
to
just
say about
another
lithium
chemistry that
sodium.
might
Yeah.
happen.
A lot of there's so many announcements on those, and those are all
Who can
out
keep
there in the
up?
future. Like
Right.
we're really looking at what's the cheapest, most energy dense unit of battery we can buy.
And
And,
we have-
it's not bleeding edge because Samsung's manufacturing it.
We have new EV companies, like American EV battery companies that reach out to us to test cells. Like people are definitely getting us prototype 2170s of new technology all the time.
And they're 10-20% more energy dense.
Yeah. Can I ask, just because they're in the same area, like, do you ever go talk to the Lucid boys about their battery lab? Because I've been in there. It's like,
I've been in there a few times.
it's wild. Okay, so you do talk to them because that's
It's
like,
a small world of
because
battery and EV. nuts.
I was that, because the car's great. I drove the car. Everything there is great. I went to this battery torture center, and I was like, this is amazing. Like. It was, just like that. These machines that like cook and roast batteries.
So we gotta wrap up. I'd have one final question. There's one thing we didn't talk about is How on earth is this going to be comfortable to sit inside if it's so small? You really going to fit 5 people in the back, like 3 across?
Same interior as a Toyota Tacoma.
And in our announcement,
space.
we'll invite you guys to, and you'll get a chance to sit in it.
So like the 3 of you guys could all sit in the back seat and be comfortable and.
Well, define comfortable, but sure, yeah.
The back seats, all 3 of us would be a little bit of a squeeze, but same with the back seat of my Toyota Tacoma.
Right.
So I literally went and measured the legroom and the headroom of my Tacoma to the T, and made sure that we were at least 1 millimeter bigger on every dimension.
Okay, all right.
Forrest, how tall are you?
6'2".
You're 6'2". When you sit in the driver's seat, can you sit behind yourself?
Yes.
And do your knees touch the front seat?
It's tight.
They brush against the seat.
But it is in most vehicles that I sit
And your
in
head
back.
is touching the roof.
No, there's actually a
no?
pretty good roof headspace.
And your knees
the back.
high?
But also, I would say, as a father of a young child, you know that it's mostly kids in the back seat, mostly, yeah, for single families. You know,
the Bay
yes,
Area, man.
when the in-laws
You got a
come
150-pound
visit.
dog he's got to put in the bag. What's your dog's name?
Zuko.
Zuko's going to be comfortable in the back too?
So Zuko sits in the back of the truck with the cover on it.
So do you guys have a cover?
Yeah.
Tonneau cover.
No, not a tonneau, like a topper.
camper.
Yeah. Are you designing that?
We are.
Oh, that's cool.
We want to have it fit really, like flush.
Yeah, I just got a topper on my Rivian, and I'm actually helping this company. I'll give them a shout out. Go Fast Camping in Montana, but I'm helping them.
West Seiler's boys.
West Seiler's wife's business, wife's family business, but I'm helping them develop one for the Rivian right now, and it's a tight fit, but it's much more complicated than.
Yeah, it's a
anyone
bummer when,
imagines. Yeah.
Like going to get like a third-party camper shell is on like a F-150 or Tacoma. It sucks. Like there's nothing that fits nicely.
Right.
And well, and it always the dampers wear out and the locking system wears out.
Right.
It's always miserable.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. You're gonna do that. That's
All right. So anybody, I'm happy to say that the website TELO Trucks, TELOtrucks.com/pre-order. That's pre-dash order, and that's $152, refundable, fully refundable. You can be customer number 3,501.
Probably like
that
16.
I might be 3501 actually.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to shout out?
Yeah. So one thing that we're doing differently than a lot of other companies out there is we really want to take everyone on our journey with us. So we keep a very active Discord channel where you can talk to our engineers and our team, and we have announcements, and we can actually vote on things. Like one thing that we recently voted on is how do you want to strap things into the car, and L-Track was the #1 voting, and so we implemented L-Tracks in the back of our truck. So like we want people to be involved in the development of our vehicle, and we also have a YouTube channel which we also share. Every 2 weeks we'll share a video roughly on kind of the progress of the company. So
that's youtube.com/TELOtrucks.
I think.
Okay.
I got it. I'll make sure I link you that.
Just go to YouTube in the search.
Yeah.
YouTube is pretty good search.
Yeah.
Last question. What? Look at the side profile. It's got this cut line ahead of the rear wheel that looks like a gear tunnel thing would flop down. That's
Monster tunnel.
That's how you
the
access it.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the side
I
access.
was thinking you were going through
Both.
the.
You can access it both directions.
You can access it both directions.
Interesting.
Oh.
And if I'm standing, I'm just under 6 feet tall, if I'm standing next to the back, the truck bed, I can reach down and touch the floor of the.
28.5-inch tall bed.
It's actually really nice.
Okay.
You're
can't
not
do that
used to
in
that.
any pickup.
You don't
You
need a
can't-
ladder to
yes.
get to the pickup truck.
Okay.
Right. So you can just walk on the wheel and just hop right in.
Amazing. Oh
You
yeah.
can step on the monster tunnel.
How big are the wheels?
29 inches.
How big is the
Okay.
wheel?
Sorry, 27 inches.
How
Sorry.
big is the wheel?
The rim is 16.
Rim is 16. So it's
16.
So,
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
The
Oh,
16
that's
spot.
cool.
That's cool. Okay.
That's really cool.
16-inch rim.
Oh, wow.
The exact tire size is 215/65 R16.
Yeah.
Just and when
It's
you
like
build
Miata
tires that
tires.
small anymore?
Yeah.
They're the smallest off-road all-terrain tire you can get in more than 6 flavors.
Okay.
You
'Cause
see
I'm
how-
just 16 inches like.
This is signs of
fairly
true
rare.
dorks. We're
Yeah.
excited about 16 inches.
No, I mean,
No, I'm serious. Like, this
no.
is great.
What was I just drove something like a
Miata,
Porsche?
probably.
No, like a 550 Spider had 16-inch wheels. You know.
So we had to do some fun stuff to get the calipers to fit in the 16-inch wheel. Like
Yeah.
there's some
Totally.
engineering that had to go
Yeah.
into that.
Right.
Your rims are as big as like what Bugatti brake discs.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know Bugatti, but I mean the Lamborghini Urus
18.
17.3-inch
Yeah.
disc rotors.
So
Yeah, Urus and the Bentley, all the big Volkswagen Group brakes. The biggest brake they make is 17.3.
stupid. So dumb.
That's
Okay.
great. Stops the car.
All right. Thank you so much. This was awesome.
Yeah,
We're very
very
excited. To be honest, I totally geeked out. I don't mean to come off as skeptical. When I saw this thing, when Reggie
He
mentioned
plays
it,
bad cop.
I thought this was awesome. So Jason and Forrest, amazing to have you here.
Yeah.
But if you guys are interested, check it out.
And,
TELOtrucks.com for the MT1. I love the name MT. Good choice.
Yes,
Thank you so much for having us.
We can't wait to drive it.
Yeah.
We're very
Yeah,
excited.
put us on the list. We'll be
Yes, yeah.
In LA.
Seriously, put us on the list.
In LA,
Yeah.
by the way.
We'll test it.
Because we were the first. I'm sure you know that we were the first to drive the Tesla, and I was literally the first non-Lucid employee to drive a Lucid. So
we first take the Rivian off-road across the country.
We were the first to drive the Rivian in
We'll
its
drive your
production
truck
form.
underwater, whatever you want to do.
Yes,
I think Alex from MotorTrend was the first to write an article about us. So.
Right. Yeah. And Alex,
MotorTrend is in
6'10", fit inside your
Yeah,
vehicle.
he did.
Yes, I love it.
So bonked my head if you want to see how tall he is. Bonked my head on Instagram.
All right.
He is literally 6'10".
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
The InEVitable Vodcast, brought to you by the all-electric Nissan Ariya. Inspired by the future, designed for the now.